Let's talk about Georgia's paper industry. It's a massive economic engine for the state. But, for a lot of people living nearby, the first sign of that engine isn't seeing a factory, it's a smell. So today, we're going to dive into that billion-dollar smell. What's really behind it, and this absolutely fascinating biological solution that might just be changing the whole game. Yeah, in the towns right near these paper mills, that distinct odor in the air, it actually has a nickname. They call it the smell of money. It's kind of this wry acknowledgement of how important the industry is for jobs in the local economy, but it also papers over a much deeper problem that's hiding in plain sight, or I guess plain smell.
So, what is the real cost of that smell? Because it's way more than just something unpleasant in the air. We're talking about real, tangible environmental damage, potential health concerns for communities, and literally millions of dollars in regulatory fines.
All right, first up, let's really dig into the scale of this problem. Georgia's billion-dollar smell. So Georgia's got more than 20 of these mills up and running, supporting thousands of jobs, which is huge. But for a lot of them, the process of turning wood into paper creates a ton of air and water pollution. And believe me, that pollution comes with a really hefty price tag. So what are people actually smelling? Well, folks in these communities describe it as rotten eggs, sewage, or even boiled cabbage. Yikes. And these aren't just random gross smells. They are the direct result of specific chemical byproducts, things like volatile sulfur and phenolic compounds that get released during the whole papermaking process. Okay, to really get to the bottom of this pollution, we've got to zoom in, way in, like down to the molecular level. It all comes down to one single, really stubborn culprit, and its name is lignin. So what is lignin? Think of it like the natural glue that holds wood fibers together. It's what makes trees strong and rigid. And because of that, it is incredibly tough to break down. During the pulping process, mills have to get rid of it, but it just fights back. It resists being broken down. And all the leftover gunk from that fight, that's what creates the pollution, the nasty smells, and that discolored water you see getting discharged into rivers.
And the impact on the community? Oh, it's very real. Just look at the Georgia Pacific Mill in Brunswick. Since 2021 alone, residents there have filed over 170 air quality complaints with the state's Environmental Protection Division. And the vast majority of them? You guessed it, directly linked to emissions blowing downwind from that mill.
And those complaints, they have consequences. We're talking big money. Between 2020 and 2025, the state's top polluting mills were hit with a combined $7.4 million in fines for environmental violations. That is not pocket change. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, but aren't there solutions for this? And yes, there are. But the traditional methods, things like harsh chemical treatments and giant air scrubbers, they're often just a Band-Aid. They use a massive amount of energy, and worse, they create their own secondary waste, like sludge, that then has to be dealt with. It's like solving one problem by creating another one. But this is where things get really interesting. What if the solution wasn't another big, loud machine, but something biological? A whole new approach is emerging that uses nature itself to solve this industrial problem. And when you put them side by side, the difference is just stark. Check this out. The old way is chemical and physical, uses a ton of energy, and creates its own waste. The new biological approach is energy efficient, creates zero sludge, and it tackles the pollutant right at its source. So how does it actually work? It's brilliantly simple, really. First, you take these specialized microbes. Think of them as a microscopic cleanup crew, and you house them in something called a bioreactor. Second, these little guys naturally produce specific enzymes that act like molecular scissors, targeting those tough lignin molecules. Third, the enzymes get to work snipping up the lignin into harmless little components. And the final result? Cleaner water and neutralized odors. Now, that all sounds great in theory, but does it work in the real world? Let's look at the data from some pilot programs right there in Georgia. And honestly, the results are pretty staggering. In Jesup, the technology achieved up to an 85% reduction in key pollutants. In Rome, it cut color and odor by 81%. And in Savannah and Brunswick, it degraded nearly 3/4 of the lignin byproducts. I mean, these aren't small improvements. This is totally transformative stuff. Just stop and think about what an 85% reduction in the core pollutant actually means. It's a game changer for the facility's bottom line, for the health of the local river, and for every single person in the community living downwind. And here's the kicker. This isn't just an environmental win, it's a huge financial one. By avoiding millions in potential fines and saving on energy and other costs, a mill can see a full return on its investment in this technology in just 2 to 5 years. That is an incredible ROI. But okay, let's be real. A system like this is a major capital investment. So the big question is still, how can these mills actually afford to make the switch? Well, the answer lies in a pretty clever financial strategy. The key is something called fund stacking. Instead of trying to find one giant check to pay for everything, fund stacking is all about layering multiple smaller sources, like federal grants, low-interest loans, and state tax credits to cover the entire cost of the project. So here's what that could look like. A project might get funded 50% by government grants, another 30% through a low-interest loan, and then the final 20% is covered by energy and R&D tax credits. All of a sudden, a multi-million-dollar upgrade starts to look a whole lot more achievable, right? And the best part is, these funding sources are out there and they are available. You've got programs from the Department of Energy, the EPA, and the USDA, all specifically designed to support projects just like this. Plus, recent legislation has made R&D tax benefits even more valuable for companies that are developing and implementing green technology. So can some of the planet's oldest organisms, these tiny microbes, truly solve one of modern industry's most persistent and, well, smelliest problems? The evidence seems to suggest that by working with nature instead of against it, the answer is a resounding yes.